All right, welcome. So we just listened to the song Sleeping at Last, or the artist Sleeping at Last, and the song Saturn. What a beautiful song that is. So if you are listening to the recording, I'd highly recommend pausing this and just going listening to the song. I'll put a link in the YouTube description so you can find it, and so you can tap into this frequency that we just enjoyed. But yeah, so let's go over the lyrics of what was sung about and see what we see. So the song Saturn, even just the name of it. What is Saturn? Saturn is Chronos, or time, often associated with the Grim Reaper, the limitations of the physiological body that we are entering into this experience. So Saturn often represents both the highest and the lowest points in alchemy. But from a certain frame, it represents the lead, the initial limitation, the initial barrier that must be broken through in order to rise. And it's through it's not without purpose, right? Like Saturn often gets a bad rap that it's, like Satan, and it's containing and forcing us to stay limited. But it's through that pressure, it's through that limitation that we actually grow and grow stronger. So it's necessary. It's what provides, it's what gives the light within us context and contrast. It's the boundary we must cross. So Saturn is the dweller on the threshold. We can't understand the infinite spirit until we experience the finite, death and time. So this is what gives life its meaning. So then continuing on with the lyrics, you taught me the courage of stars before you left, how light carries on endlessly, even after death. So this is the finite, or the appearance of being finite, coming to terms with the infinite nature. So before you left, as in before this divine inspiration leaves us, or before a mentor or a loved one, we're always given these reminders about our infinite nature, about how our light carries on endlessly after death. So as part of the alchemical process, this is the necessary acceptance of the death, so that I can have the courage to step into new life, to be reborn. And that is paired with the knowing that that light never ceases. So then it continues, with shortness of breath, you explain the infinite, how rare and beautiful it is to even exist. So again, sort of looking at that juxtaposition, the paradox of living in, one might view as a dying biological machine, or the shortness of breath, this body that we inhabit, which of course the decay is, or the rate of decay is our choice. But as part of this physical experience, death is a part of that. So no matter how long we stretch it, there is a part of that. So it's coming to terms with that. And then, of course, spiritually, letting the old versions of us die so that we can be reborn. So this is like this line is like the wise the wise man or the wise woman passing the torch to the hero. Like the dying mentor realizes that the death cycle is what allows the nothing to exist. The fact that we are here conscious against the chaotic void. This is what creates the canvas for the gold to be extracted from the lead. It's a very beautiful song. And so then it continues, I couldn't help but ask for you to say it all again. I tried to write it down, but I could never find a pen. I'd give anything to hear you say it one more time, that the universe was made just to be seen by my eyes. So I couldn't help but ask for you to say it all again. I tried to write it down, but I couldn't find a pen. I'd give anything to hear you say it one more time. So this is the another paradox of us having a finite experience, and then the constant attempts of our mind to try and define what we are experiencing. So this is the logos, which is the spoken word, which is a way for consciousness to flow through and experience itself. But logos itself does not contain consciousness. So this is the difference between logos and gnosis. And anytime we try and define the consciousness within the logos, it will always fall short. The truth cannot be encoded in that. But only through gnosis, which is the direct experiential knowledge, that's the only way that we can experience this or truly resonate with it. It's a vibration that must be felt, not transcribed. Which is why religions always fall short. Definitions, governments, things that try and put this in a box, contain it, laws and definitions and things written, they will always fall short. And they will lead us to further delineation or further suffering. Because the more we remove ourselves from the knowing within, the gnosis within, the true direct experience without any layer between us, the more layers we put in between us, the further we fall into the separation illusion, instead of the separation being just an experience to enjoy. So then the last line, that the universe was made just to be seen by my eyes. So this is the recognition that you are the observer. You are the monad. You are that which is beyond observation. And as a aspect of consciousness, wherever we point, the universe unfolds. Wherever we are looking, wherever we are observing, literally everything is created. Without that, without the observer, the wave function collapses. So the observer is what allows this whole thing to exist. Now, don't get that confused with your egoic persona, right? That's the trap. It's thinking that is what it's there for. And we can easily get caught up into that. But the you that exists beyond the thoughts and beyond the ideas and reactions and all of these things, that's the you, that's the me, that's the we. That's the one. So this line also solidifies that the hero is not just a tiny speck in the universe. The hero is the eye of the universe. So without these eyes, the slice of reality would remain unmanifested. That the universe was made just to be seen by my eyes. And then it repeats itself I couldn't help but ask for you to say it all again. I tried to write it down, but I could never find a pen. I'd give anything to hear you say it one more time, that the universe was made just to be seen by my eyes. So just to really emphasize that. And then the last line, it kind of comes back around again. With shortness of breath, I'll explain the infinite, how rare and beautiful it truly is that we exist. So the first time that was mentioned, it said, you'll explain. So this is the student becoming the master. The recognition, the realization, the lead turning into gold. With shortness of breath, becoming at peace with my finite experience of this body that we are inhabiting for this time, I'll explain the infinite from a space of knowing, Gnosis. How rare and beautiful it truly is that we exist. So to just leave that lasting impression through the song. So from this, are we living from that recognition? Or are we living from the recognition that I am, or from the I am? That everything is here for that, for you? Or am I living as a insignificant speck? Some just happenstance, whether that be a worthless sinner from a religious standpoint, or a evolved piece of pond scum, random, careless, in a random, careless universe, or with a separate, judgmental idea of a God. All those lead to that state of powerlessness. Or am I stepping into my power as the one? Be the one, Neo. So next time we feel the limitations of Saturn, let's remind ourselves of the reality and remind ourselves what that limitation is there for. It's there to refine. It's there to inspire. It's there to move us to step into that light in a much more pure and unadulterated form, to recognize the self. So anyway, that was that song, again, by Sleeping at Last. The song's called Saturn. So I hope you enjoyed that. And welcome to another quest I on. The quest to illuminate the single eye, the quest I am on, the quest that we are all on, where we gather to ask questions, to share our experiences, to go over anything that's on our heart, anything that we're experiencing, going through, any questions that we have, or any answers that we want to provide. I am certainly by no means claiming to have all the answers. How boring would it be if I did? So I enjoy having this space to dialogue on a range of topics, and I love that there are other wise souls who join in as well. So if you find yourself with the inspiration to want to jump in, either asking a question or sharing on any particular topic, you are more than welcome to do so. So just to go through some quick announcements before we dive into the show, just wanted to let everybody know, you might have seen a recent post that I did about the SongKeeper school that I'm joining. So a recent interview I did with Rhea Mana, which was phenomenal. If you haven't seen that, highly recommend it. It was such a fun conversation. She is just such a wealth of wisdom, and she's so sweet. She's so sweet and loving, and just a wonderful, wonderful woman. And she's been doing this work for quite a long time, hosting versions of the SongKeeper School, which is all about coming back to the resonance of our voice, recognizing how powerful that is, and spreading that beautiful resonance through the gift of song. So the SongKeeper school is really a beautiful mystery school to uncover the esoteric knowledge, Gnosis, behind what our voice is used for and how we can more consciously step into that in a better way. So yeah, so I really wanted to go. I went to a presentation that she gave on Saturday, which the replay to that is up on her channel, Rayamana. And it was just so inspiring to hear her talk about and see the depth of knowledge that she has. So I felt very inspired to go. So I reached out to her, and she's agreed. You know, we're going to do some trading to for her to have me jump on. I'm going to help her do some content creation and help promote that school. But I get to go to that school, which I'm very, very excited about and very appreciative of her for giving me the opportunity. And I would absolutely love if anybody else would join me in that. It's going to be I think 6 months. So 6 months we'll be meeting once a week, at least once a week. A couple times we'll meet more often than once a week. But once a week for, I think every Wednesday night is when we have our meetings. And I'm sure those will be recorded for anyone who can't attend to them live. And yeah, just learning the depth of what she has to offer, how to step into our voice more, how to refine our singing abilities, how to come together in that way. And it's going to be quite wonderful. So if you are interested in joining that school, highly recommend it. You can go to rayamana.com and you can find the link to, well, it's rayamana.com/2026 SongKeeper. Let me just pull this up on the screen here. So you can see the SongKeeper school. So the link there, so rayamana.com/2026 SongKeeper. And you can find more information about it here. And she's been very generous in offering a discount to anyone who wants to go. And so if you do want to go, there's a 25% discount especially if you use the code LightForged. So that's my YouTube channel name, LightForged, all one word, and you get a 25% discount in joining. So it's well worth it in my opinion, because like I said, it's 6 months long. So there's going to be a ton of knowledge shared in it. And it's not just of course, there's going to be amazing learning through it, but it's also an investment if somebody wants to try and make money off of blessing the land. So through this course, you do receive a certification for being able to bless the land, learn how to do a land blessing. And she said that the growing want for these to be done is tremendous. There's much more awareness of these ceremonies and these rituals, and people are looking for those who have experience to come set them up, whether somebody's just made a purchase of a new piece of land or wanting to break ground on a new piece of construction, or just wanting to bring balance and peace into a space. People are looking for those who have experience in this space. So she said that in her experience, people will pay usually around at least like $500 for somebody to go and do this land blessing. So even just a few of those, and you've already paid for the course. So it really is it's a great offer. It's a great opportunity. And she is just such a wonderful individual in offering something like this. So if you are interested, definitely come check it out. You can find the links in the description of that. I'll put the links in the description of this video as well. But certainly in the description of the post that I wrote recently. And if you have more questions, feel free to reach out. But I'm quite excited about that. And that starts very soon. So the offer for 25% off only goes until, I think, the 24th. So Saturday. Saturday's the last day of the discount. And then after that, we start the course on next Wednesday, the 28th. So it's coming up real soon. But yeah, I would love to attend with anybody. So anyone who's interested, definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions. So yeah, that's that. Did want to mention that Bali and the Lions of Uganda are still making great progress for their home construction. They had a bit of a slowdown during the elections there, which I mentioned last week, where the local corruption is just very obvious of just, yeah, we'll just shut down the internet. And yeah, he said it can get pretty violent too, of anyone who is against the current local establishment. So he's grateful that that time period is over, and they do seem to be back up and running, and still construction is underway. So that is awesome to see. Great to see updates from him. He just posted a video in JC Family earlier today. So yeah, thank you all so much for your help with that. If you do want to help out with that at all, you can go to giftsandgo.com/Lions of Uganda. It's a great way to support, or you can give to me any which way that you can, that I can receive, and I'm more than happy to send it to them. Just leave me a note when you do it that way, so I know that you'd like the funds directed that way. And anytime anybody does any of that, just let me know if you'd like a receipt. I always take screenshots of every time I send to Bali, but I'm more than happy to provide that to anybody who is curious. And yeah, so my links for contributions, either both to myself, because I am donation supported to do all the work here. So if you like what happens in this channel and you want to help out, every little bit does help. And here are a bunch of ways that you can contribute, all on justincarpenter.org/contribute. So I appreciate anyone who does offer in that. It really is so helpful. Helps keep me going, helps keep me focused on these projects and these amazing interviews that I've had recently. If you haven't seen the stuff that's been going on the Lightforged YouTube channel, it's so much fun. Like yesterday, I released the video on, what was it? The blood ritual of circumcision with Jenna McClelland. And we went so deep into that conversation. It was so good. It was so freaking good. And it's a topic that doesn't get talked about hardly at all. Like nobody's really talking about circumcision and just this horrific practice that is just looked past, and people just think that that's just normal. Yeah, we should just continue mutilating the genitals of little boys and not even think about it, and think that that doesn't have any long-lasting harm. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. So we went deep in that conversation, and that's one that, I think we should know a lot more about. We should become more aware of, so that we can stop this horrific practice, but not just stop it, also heal from it. The insanity of thinking that, because a child cannot speak, that they somehow don't feel this. Most of the time it's done without anesthesia. And most of the time the little baby goes into such shock and passes out because of the immense pain. It's crazy. It really is insanity. And, I loved how in that conversation and how I'm really drawn to Jenna's work, because she's not solely focused on the problem. She's like, okay, we got to acknowledge the problem and let's go back to solution oriented. Right? Because if we dwell in the problem, then we can get lost in the anger, the resentment. And I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that any men out there who have been circumcised to point anger at their parents, because forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, what they did. They didn't know. I certainly forgive my parents for doing that to me. But it doesn't mean that I ignore the work required to move through that. So even for somebody like me, who, not to toot my own horn, but I do find I'm generally not afflicted by traumatic patterning very much in my life. I live a pretty peaceful existence, pretty harmonious with those around me. But even so, there's still work to do. And so Jenna's work is great to go deeper into those subconscious layers and really peel back all this scar tissue, all this psychic scar tissue that is guarding, protecting, at one point was very protective, but now it's time to release that so the true self can emerge. So anyway, just an example of the wonderful things that we are discussing. And I've got several more interviews lined up. Very excited about those as well. And I have a long list of people that I'm wanting to reach out to. So stay tuned for a lot of more exciting things. I've got exciting solo stuff to be doing as well. Plans written out. So as I said before, the creative juices are flowing. So I appreciate anybody who does support to just give me peace of mind so I can focus more on, creating and not as much on, generating income, which of course I will if I need to. And I of course will if I need to, but I do appreciate everyone who chips in to help keep me laser focused on giving as much to y'all as I possibly can, because that's where my joy and my passion truly is. So thank you again. So yeah, I think with that said, I think we'll just jump right into the show today. So like I said, any topics are welcome. Anything's on the table. I often say that I have offline questions, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me with any offline questions. Something comes up as the week progresses and you just want to send a question, you can reach out to me any which way that you can, whether that's just relaying a comment on a post or sending me a question directly. My Telegram handle is @JustinCarpenter, all one word, which you can find me, or on Facebook, or any which way. And I'll record those, but I do love to give priority to those who are here live on the show, just because it's fun to engage and have a discussion and talk back and forth. So yeah, I'll check in there first. And I see that we've already got Rowan raising his hand. So go ahead, brother. What you got?
Hey, dudes and dudettes. Glad to be back and hearing all your voices again. Yeah, we just got a vacuum cleaner over there. It's a bit loud. Hold on. All right. There we go. Yeah, I was enjoying listening to what you were describing and sharing with us about this course. And pardon me, I'm actually in the thick of kind of my nose in the books, several kinds of books, and crossing the name of what you just mentioned. But I'm doing all kinds of things, really awesome things, and like certifications for becoming a trainer and recovery, injury therapy, things like that. And I'm considering courses like the one that you are telling us about, and it sounds like a good deal and everything. And what I've been trying to narrow down is like, because like, it's not that I doubt this would be a bad thing or that it would be a good thing, pardon me. But when it comes to these certifications or these courses, like that's been, I think everyone's noticed how many courses there are online. And this is one of them, right? But preferably I would like to think a good one. And I just won't talk about things I don't know anything about, right? But there's so many of these courses, and I'm not going to say they're all the same. They all offer so many different things. But yeah, it's like I'm not trying to stay focused on, of course, if I have to, focus on generating income. You described it very well. Like, of course, I think all prefer to be in our creative mode. And whatever that may be for you, that it probably doesn't create income, right? So you have to like balance both. And seeing and hearing about all these certifications and all these different kind of like, I guess the mainstream would call them alternative things, right? Is that trying to break the ice with, like, let's say we got only the good courses, good teachers, good mentors. They've got everything set up perfectly, but the way that the world is tilted is that if you're not wearing a lab coat with your little, license, you basically don't exist. But there's people who are making a living, doing, I don't want to say life coaching because that just makes me cringe. But there's people doing things without certifications. And I think what they've done is they've just figured it out. Like, I mean, as long as you're paying your little taxes with your little business or whatever, you're supposed to be fine or whatever, right? And that's what I'm trying to point out is how many people, like, we can't have an exact number, but how can we be certain that what we're about to be learning is genuinely going to help people, and it's also going to attract them naturally to it, not having to, go chasing them like a salesman or something, slimy and snake oilsy like that. Um, yeah, like this is the Chinese, what is the New Year? Of the fire horse, that's right. So I'm burning and galloping at 100 miles a second, and I'm like doing my best to not waste any time. And I don't want my question to linger on for too long either. I want to help people with this question your course and the one that you're about to start looks and sounds awesome, but to others who are not into these things like we are, it's like they just don't care. So how effective do you think this course would be, and other courses like it, like legitimate ones, once you've, of course, filtered through and done your own research? Yeah, I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that it's important that we revisit as we sort of step away from the old societal standards of what a degree is or what certifications are, and especially when we realize that the vast majority, especially anything that is heavily pushed by society, it's complete fabrication. It's built on nonsense. Even those that have some logic to them, their foundation is rotten. So yeah, I mean, the question is, how can we be certain what we're learning is worthwhile with certifications and different courses and things that we can take? Ultimately, it comes back to what's relevant to us and what, like, so this, for example, just to use this as an example, this is the SongKeeper school certification for land blessing. And so Rhea has been doing this work for, I don't know how long, I think well over a decade, if not several decades. And so she has a reputation. She's established trust through what she knows and what she's learned, through her experience, through who she's worked with. So anyone who has experience in this area and they see a certification from Rhea, that trust carries with her, because they know that she's only going to give this to those who are ready to receive it. And so that's the sort of trust that's given over through something like this. And that's generally the ideal way that anything, certifications, degrees, anything in this regard should carry with them. I mean, even looking at it from a societal standard, universities should be, in an ideal state, they should be spaces of true higher learning, where the degrees that are given out are built on solid foundation and people are learning things that are truly helpful. And so if someone goes through the process of acquiring a degree, that trust should carry over. Now, the problem is the trust is not there for those who start to realize that the whole foundation was built on bullshit, on garbage. So those things don't really mean as much to us anymore. And once more people learn the truth about the depth of nonsense that was pushed through societal standards, then yeah, we're going to have to revisit everything. I've often said that through this great awakening process, it's not even after the big shift of mass disclosure, which is very much still coming, we're going to have to go through every layer of society with a fine-tooth comb and determine where has this corrupt lie, where is this, I don't even really want to use cancer because that whole frame of reference is warped as well. But where does this poison reached? This poisonous lie, these foundational lies that have been embedded into the initial teachings, and then so anything built off of those, it has no solidity to it. So once we honestly and humbly go through that, and people people release their attachments to whatever they thought they knew, which is going to be a challenging process, especially those who have done a lot of work, invested a lot of time and money into degrees and certifications and things. It's going to take some work for them to release that. But that's okay. You know, if people want to still hold on to those who are aware and more humbly, honestly adopt a truth-centered way of being and aren't afraid to let old versions of themselves go, regardless of how much time and effort was spent on building a house on top of garbage. Of course, you don't want to spend any more time there, no matter how beautiful that house is that you've built on this pile of garbage. It's built on garbage. We got to let it go. So that process will take time. It will not be easy, but through that, we'll get to reestablish trust in any group, any certificate, any word, because it's another form of word, right? A certificate. Again, back to this example, it's Rhea's word that she has given to somebody, and so the trust that she has established through her experience and through her clear showing of what she's done and how she's put it out, then that word transcribed on paper has a lot of weight to it. And this is the same for anything else. So I'm very much in, I think it's wonderful that people are finding ways outside of the dogmatized certificate degree reality to establish trust within just themselves. And so you mentioned like life coaches or people who work in those kind of ways, but they've established trust just based on them. They're not relying on a certificate. They're not relying on a degree or somebody else to establish trust for them. They're building it themselves. And the proof's in the feedback, the reviews. So I think that's going to be such a more foundational part of how we establish trust as well, is just what is our reputation? How have we lived and conducted ourselves? What has been our online imprint? What has been our physical imprint? How do all these things merge together to show what is the pattern that we're displaying? Are we displaying a pattern of dishonesty, of screwing people over, of, whatever that looks like? Are we displaying a pattern of inadequacy or ineptitude, slothfulness, or just unwillingness to stand up? Or are we displaying a pattern of strength, fortitude, resilience, competency? All these things will be much easier to see as we, one, start to grow our eyes to see them, but two, when the system itself is designed to augment and reward those who are Christ-centered. We're coming out of an anti-Christic system that rewarded those who were conniving and were manipulative and were able to get away with things, with, of course, virtue signaling baked into it as well, so it disguises it. But once we break all of that and move to a true Christ-centered way, then society will prop up and augment the trust, and a reputation will go along with that. And so, of course, so say I was going to set up some course or some school or something like that, then I could choose to impart some of my trust that I've established based on my work and how I've carried myself to give it to others, for them to carry with them as a certificate or whatever. We can come up with all sorts of different names for it, but that's all it is. It's just a It's a movement of trust. It's a trading of trust. So that if it's not already clear through our other work, how we are and how we show up, we can have another piece of evidence to say, I've really dedicated myself to this trade, to this task, to this learning. And here's what I have to show for it. And here's the trust, the solid foundation that it's built upon, whether that's through Rhea or whomever is giving those kind of things. And so it just helps to, sort of expedite that process and give credence to those who have done learning in that way. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense. And I'll just pass it back to you if you want to respond. And then I saw Peggy raise her hand as well. So go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, that whole transition that's going to happen and already is very noticeable. Like I listen to a few. I will try listening to some new ones sometimes, but almost all of them, ones who are like growing their YouTube channels, for example, they're not even selling a course or anything like that. They haven't even taken one. They simply just talk about things like what you just described about life coaches or certain coaches. Like they've built a reputation and a real one, which is awesome. Like that's a true life coach or a true personal trainer, whoever or whatever they're specializing in. So yeah, with that being said, these creators, they're all noticing this pushback from these algorithms and mainstream, I guess, old legacy programs that are just doing their absolute best to keep realness at an absolute minimum. Because even though I do not myself get pulled into too much doom scrolling or any of those older habits, yeah, it's incredible that they still bombard like my news page with things that I never clicked on or have never clicked on, and it's advertising it to me as if I have been interested in it, and that's as if it's been my behavior. I wonder if everyone else has also noticed some of those things with maybe not just YouTube, but uh, other platforms where it's just like, or what you're doing, like you're doing the right things, like building yourself, growing, etc. It's like you just get bombarded with distractions. You might even have some of these apps to block distractions or ads and other things, and it's almost like there's a war. There's always like this little war happening on the phone or your device trying to, like, it's like an arm wrestle of all the programs you've installed or the things that you've done, the habits you got to combat these old types of things. Like, yeah, that's been a massive distraction, is all of these old world certifications, when I've spoken to so many naturopaths and so many people who, yeah, they've gone with what they thought was the alternative license for what they thought was the right type of medicine to practice. And no, they were so disappointed that it's like they just slap NHD on there and it's just now you're official. It's treated the exact same way. So the credibility for, yeah, even just naturopaths who are like regular doctors, they thought they were doing the right thing, their credibility is going down. But yet their offices are still super busy and you can't get a new doctor. And that's where it's like, I'm not trying to think like a businessman here, like how do I take the pharmaceutical doctor's customers? It's like they're going to find out on their own accord, like depending on how long that has to be their lesson is, like the drugs they take that cause X effect, which then they take another for Y effect, whatever. And it's like we have to wait for, yeah, this purging of experiences to kind of like happen for like maybe not everyone, but it kind of makes me sad. I'm not trying to force people into doing things, but yeah, it is kind of, it's a bit maddening, that we have actually access to this wonderful information, all kinds of things, and people are still gonna like, look at it in a certain way. And there's nothing we can do. It's just we have to let it happen. And this allowing is what I think is the hardest part, and fully surrendering to let it do its course for everyone. And you can't pick on any individual for how they experienced or didn't experience something, and you even might have a way of explaining to them that could help them to do something quicker. And like that's kind of what the point of what you're doing is to help people. And it's just seeing how badly they don't want the help and the pushing away. And that's what's going to happen is they're going to come, maybe not crawling back to you or I, right? But they'll be hopefully not on their something as bad as their deathbed, but have an experience that's super frightening or something that makes them finally snap into it. But it's like, it kind of drives me crazy thinking about it and trying not to, that people are going to suffer. Maybe I see as unnecessarily, but for them it is technically necessary, and to judge it is wrong. And yeah, this is trailing off into some other thoughts and questions, but I don't want to hog the microphone here. So I'll free it up for Peggy. Thanks for waiting. And I'll wait until mid-end of the show or something, and I'll come back with it at that time. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Hey there, greetings. I'd like to share what the topic of conversation is and what has happened to me recently in the last probably three to 5 months. And it goes along with what we're talking about with the concept of us sharing with mankind the truth to start to develop heaven on earth. And with my process, or with what has happened to me, is it's all been really organically. And I just spent the morning going through some notes, and I've noticed what has happened to me, I've written in notes in the past year, the past year and a half. And I had a conversation this morning with a director of an adult community, and I've been cleaning houses for some senior adults recently over the last couple years, and just developing personal relationships with them, watching them go through the Western medical, not being able to really share with them just because they're so close-minded, but going into their homes and being love and light, and just serving them and helping them in little ways that they are just so much appreciated of. So just recently, I met a new customer. Her name is Lucy, and she's a gem. And I started sharing with her about some ideas that I had, and we were talking about a soup social, and we had like really genuine conversations. And it was so interesting that every conversation that I want to have with someone and that I want to just explode with truth, and learning that we have to like just step back and let the door open so that we could walk through. Well, I had probably 5 different conversations with Lucy while I was cleaning her house, and every conversation that I had with her, she opened the door, and I was able to step in to those conversations, and they were just so genuine. They were so true. She was receiving them. And one of the last 2 conversations I had with her was her son had a brain disease. He was given 16 months to live. He decided to go vegan before he was diagnosed with the brain disease. And he told his mom, I love animals. I don't want to kill them. I don't want to eat them. And then he was diagnosed. The doctor gave him 16 months to live. The doctor was very pleased that he had gone vegan, and it's been like 3.5 years, and he's still with us. So that was a really big testimony for Lucy. And she's an adult senior. So they're sedated, they're set in their ways. It's all okay, but she's very open, and the conversations are very genuine, and I'm able to share like like videos with her and have little bits of conversations with her. So where this is leading is organically through her. I'm setting up an awareness for the adult community in South Lyon. It's totally not on social media. It's going to be, just a flyer or working with a community person to set up apparently a fundraiser. I spoke with the gal this morning, and she had actually spoke with the mayor of South Lyon, the town that it's going to be in, even before she talked to me, and said, "Oh, I've got this young lady that wants to come in, and then she wants to do like a soup social. So instead of doing hot dogs, I don't even know what else she said, hot dogs and whatever. She goes, I think we're going to do a plant-based soup social for the adult community." So I was just like, wow, like this could actually happen. And it was just a beautiful conversation that I had with her. So it's always been my heart and my passion to spread awareness to anyone really, but really settled into my space was sharing awareness with the adult community, because they're tired of cooking. They just don't want to cook anymore. So they tend to buy a lot of processed foods and drink a lot of coffee and yada, yada, yada. So it's just it's going to be a really good opportunity to share some awareness, to have some flyers on the table about being veganism, etc. I've been collecting, like I went back in my stash and I have so many different types of documents and flyers and handouts that I just need to go back and get like 20, 30, 40, or just start making copies and just organically just set this up as it's going to work. I mean, I know we all have a gift. We all have a purpose. I think we just have to sit back and just let the universe, God, source, work through us. And when we know we're going to be challenged, but I believe that when we are steadfast and when we are serving and when we do it through an act of kindness and awareness, that it's just going to all start working through us, and we're just going to be opening up the people whom we speak with, and just to the light, just to the love and the joy and the kindness that we all have to bring. So, yeah, I hope that helps. I'll keep you posted. The event, I guess, is not supposed to happen till 4/17 or the following week. But the gal that I spoke with today had some really good ideas, and she's like, well, I can help you with this, and I can do this for you, and I can create a recipe book for you. Do you have the recipes written out? And I'm like, yeah, and I already started to put a price point on them, and I've already made 2 of them, and Lucy approved of both of them. So it's just been really genuine, and it's just been really organic, and that's what I love about it. I'm not forcing the issue, and I am going to I'm going to step back, and I'm going to take Dr. Morris's course, and just kind of like get my feet, just get a little bit. I mean, yeah, here we go with their certificates and all of what y'all talked about, but I feel as though when I'm speaking with, adult seniors, that question may come up, because they're so used to Western medicine and so used to, believing in a doctor who has a degree, that if I have like a certificate from Dr. Morris, then that would be a good thing. And then just with, other resources, and yeah, so that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Peggy. That's very exciting, and it sounds like it's a very nourishing venture for all around, of course, physically with the wonderful foods, but also just having that alignment in that way. So that's wonderful to hear. And yeah, it's great to pursue. I know Dr. Morris has helped so many people, and he he really is just a wealth of wisdom in the ways that he shares and gives. And so yeah, a certification through him certainly carries a lot of weight because he's built a lot of trust. And so again, that's what these courses can do is, yeah, it's a transmission of trust. How do we transmit trust to someone else? And for those of us who, you know, especially if we're like entering into a new space where we haven't built a reputation, then having something like that is like a quick way to establish that. I mean, not quick, obviously, because it requires work and dedication to learn what needed in order to acquire the reputation and have the trust given through the certificate or whatever. But it's just a way to sort of do that without needing to sort of grind it all on your own and have like, so yeah, there are many ways to build trust, many ways to do it. But when we just see it as that simple equation of just like how can I establish trust within my words and my actions and what I'm doing? And of course it's through my works. And, but yeah, certificates, courses, things like that can certainly help. Now, random certificates where no trust has been established, you know, I'd be wary of those, you know, people trying to sell courses or whatever, and there's no inherent value or trust already established, then yeah, it doesn't really mean as much, right? So it's hard for, like, if somebody was just had no reputation and we're just like, I'm going to just start this course and start selling certificates for it, then how do you know what they're learning or what they're teaching is even helpful if you don't have any knowledge to compare it to, and there's no paper trail of experience within them to establish that reputation. So yeah, just important things to consider, but it's a great topic. And like I said, one we will certainly be engaging with a lot more from a sovereign, autonomous perspective, instead of just relying on larger institutions and organizations and things, which of course we will always have groups, and there's nothing wrong with having groups and working together, but just to not put all the weight in the organization, it comes back to the individual. And yeah, Darth has talked about this before, but just not having the organization or the corporation or all these entities to hide behind. It's like, no, if I'm transmitting trust, I'm going to be the one to sign the certificate and say this has been bestowed by me. So therefore, if somebody has that, then there's a direct line of sight to know who gave it to them and how it's been transmitted, instead of this ambiguous university with thousands of people and lots of room to hide behind and lots of room to insert bullshit. So we just get clear. So anyway, I will pass it back and see if anyone else wants to jump in, either on this topic or take us in a whole new direction. You're more than welcome.
Hi. Hey, this is Lila. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Good. I just wanted to say it's so interesting that this is coming up, because I've been doing some work with human design and focusing exactly on this. And we really are coming to the end of this time we've been in this information age as far as the transits in human design and others, obviously, many spaces. And this rigidity and kind of gatekeeping of the manifestor realm, which, you know, has served its purpose, both karmically and otherwise. But 2027, we're really coming into a different time, which is about sovereignty and autonomy and sacred knowing, and kind of knowing, to the bones of yourself and others. And so it's not that we're not going to have places where we're going to be learning from others, but it really is going to be such a different experience of experiential knowingness, humanness. So perfect, that this offering is here as far as sound healing, healing the land. So I would just say, I just wanted to bring that up and know that it's, of course, this is why we're looking into this so deeply, Rowan especially, and also just a gentle reminder of something I'm learning and have learned, is that those that need the teaching will find what teaching it is that they need. And I have to remind myself of that a lot. I'm not saying I'm perfect at that, but just that, we all have different ways of sharing information. And some of us, like me, I'm meant to impulse and even, for lack of a better term, shock people with information. And everybody has their different medicine of how they're going to share that.
Oh, we lost you, Lila. Yeah, she might have lost connection. Hopefully she comes back. But yeah, just to tag on to what she was saying, it's that sort of universal principle that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And when the student is ready, the teacher disappears. Right? So not to get tied to any one teacher or any one concept or course or end all be all kind of thing. It's like, trust the forever unfolding nature of this quest, this quest I'm on, and trusting that I will be shown the route to take when I'm ready. I'll be shown the guide to help me along that way, whether that's an internal guide or an external guide. It doesn't really matter. But as long as I'm maintaining that sovereign position and trusting the universal flow of how I move through that, then I keep shifting and evolving and moving. And but in that same way, not to get too tied to any teacher or guru or guide or anybody, any book, course, ideology. Let them teach as long as they need to, and then trust when they start to step away as well, and just trust the flow.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. It really is such a beautiful gift when we can sort of let go of guru. We're moving out of a guru age, and it's tricky because it's like something that we've been so brainwashed by. We've all been raised with it. But then we don't want to lose the energy of teacher, which is, there are things that we are taught. I have been taught to Rolf by others' hands and others' wisdom, and that's such a gift, and I'm so grateful for that. So yeah, the balance, I guess, the narrow path within that, which is just to be able to learn and know deep within you when that is helpful, but then not to put others on a pedestal and feel as if I'm nothing, if I don't have that certification or that training or whatever. We're just getting more and more finely tuned, but then to really have an open heart and body, mind, whatever, auric field, all of the above, so that when it is time for something to be learned from another, we can still be that vessel versus saying no, I must not fall into the trap of quote unquote teacher. And of course, guru, it's not even the term guru, because guru just meant teacher. It's just what we've made guru. It's become a dirty word in our our languaging. So yeah, thanks. Just wanted to throw in on that. And it's gonna be up for, you know, into next year and even beyond, as far as moving out of that hierarchy into a more community minded space. And what I love about this space and others, you know, through the truther community, is that there really is a beautiful way that we are working with releasing that hierarchy and saying, you have this gift for me, I have this gift for you. I mean, even the fact that you're talking about trading with her around the course, like we all have these beautiful gifts, and it really is this like even playing field, versus like, well, you know this, I will follow you to the ends of the earth or whatever. So thanks, just wanted to share.
Yeah, thanks for that. It was wonderfully said. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I see Beth raised her hand. Hey, sister, go ahead.
Hey, Dustin. I'm going to turn my speaker off because I think it gets feedback. Okay, does that sound okay?
Yeah, way better. Thanks.
Okay, now I can't hear you. Oh, well. This is that same thing that always happens. I just had to catch up. I haven't been on a live for so long, and I've caught little tidbits. And when this topic started going this way, there's just so many synchronicities. It's perfect timing for me, and I've been listening and identifying with a lot of what's been shared. And I'm so happy to say that Lila, of all people, and me had this conversation a couple of days ago in person, which I was just delighted that that could happen. And it was kind of around this topic. And it kind of speaks to like what I'm experiencing right now and just realizations. I've been kind of disconnected from this group for a while. I've been kind of like on my own inner journey that was like really deep. And I won't go into all that, but I guess I will. It started with yoga school, and I met a medicine woman from Turkey who does voice and drum and sound healing. And so I started studying with her right around this time last year. And it just turned into such a magical ride. And it was interesting though, because on the other side of it, like I'm realizing like all of the curriculum that she had introduced me to and, you know, tried working with me. At the time, I was just processing so much trauma, and she ended up, you know, needing to meet me where I was, and just fortunately she has, you know, tons of modalities and different things, and she was able to help me through a lot of trauma. And I was kind of like disappointed that I hadn't studied as much with using my voice, because I guess with me, using my voice means so much more. Like I had to find my voice with Seema. That's my teacher's name. But I was super excited at the synchronicity of the course coming up in this timing, because it seems like just what I might be looking for. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm hoping that I can make things happen, you know, so that I can join in that. So that's one piece of it. The fact that I got to meet Lila was just such a joy, and just being like, I don't know, there's just something special about this group. And it was really therapeutic for me to have one-on-one time with her. And she just happened to be in Florida close to me. So, but the conversation we were having, I'm trying to get back to that and kind of give a little update about my life at the same time, because I haven't been connected in so long. But I was just finding myself like realizing that as it's like this thing that I go through. I've had so many teachers, so many certifications, so many trainings, and on one hand, I know that's a part of this shadow part of me that is just like afraid to launch and afraid to be out on my own, and always liking to have someone to look up to or to lead me. But at the same time, like I'm kind of emerging out of that, and I guess it's just the perception, because what I found myself doing was realizing that a lot of things she was pursuing and I was having so much resistance about was just her path. And it's like I had to realize, like, I was, my whole goal is know thyself, and to be that best Beth. And I realized I was trying to be Seema, and she's like a very young girl in her 30s, but her life path's been different than mine, and her goals are different than mine with where she is with her life. And yeah, so just having that realization, and then having a little bit of like sadness and grief over that relationship coming, not necessarily to an end, but a shift in dynamics is taking place. So I was kind of feeling untethered and off balance. And I actually had just came from a session with her when I met Lila. So it was just very interesting timing that I was able to like kind of process through some of that with her in person. And it really helped ground me into some things. But yeah, I had so much I wanted to share, and I just got so excited also with the way this conversation was going about recognizing, like, I'll just share a little bit more experience, like my personal experience with like when I first, I was pretty much what people would call mainstream, and I didn't realize that was a trigger word for me, but I don't consider myself mainstream now. But I guess I'm saying, like, in 2020, I thought I was in a different place than I was. And there was still a lot of conditioning and programming and things from a lot of different institutions, primarily the medical system, because that was my career for so long. And I guess it's just like this process that we have of like more layers are revealed and all of that. But when I first started seeking out holistic modalities and natural health and that sort of thing, I was in a mentality that a lot of people are, that were in the same position as me. Like, you work in corporate healthcare, you have a insurance card, there's a $10 copay, you go to the doctor and you get a prescription and all of that. And the thought of paying $100 or $150 for someone who didn't have a license or like a medical degree, it was just baffling to me. And although I believed in it and I kept seeking it, I really had to stretch myself to have some faith in all of these different modalities and these teachings that I was investing in. And it has been an investment, and I'm so glad I did all of it. But I guess another part of it is just recognizing that there's also a risk, like I experienced, of like kind of getting into that learned helplessness mode where you always, I guess I'm trying to say that I recognized that I was like prolonging my life work, prolonging being seen and stepping into my gifts and that sort of thing out of fear. And I think that's part of what kept causing me to like get more certifications and more trainings and like, yeah. So to wrap that up, the exciting part about the last piece of the conversation that I was really getting excited about is hearing people talk about energy exchange and bartering and trading services and trading knowledge. And it's like, that's where my heart is. I'm involved with some groups now that are focused on like volunteerism and, that as a way of life and just trusting the process and everything working out. And I love that. So there's a big project that I've been working on for a few years, and it's Sacred Healing Arts for All, and it's the Shafa Foundation, and it's just barely being talked about now with close people, but you guys are my close people. And like, that's what I envisioned, like a network of people that kind of help support each other, and you could trade time or service or different things. So anyway, if anybody's interested in like maybe having a separate chat and brainstorming about something like that, because I'm also recognizing that I do have a need for a lot of help with a lot of just basic tasks that I used to do with relation to technology and things like that. So I'm realizing that part of what's been holding me up is I was trying to do all this on my own, kind of in fear of sharing it. But I'm recognizing that I need a group of people. So anyway, that's a long share, but thanks for being patient and listening. It's been a long time since I've been connected with you guys like this. So I just working through a lot of energy in my body right now, just being in this space. So yeah, that's all I got for now. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Beth. Thanks for being here. And yeah, it's really good to hear an update. And I loved your reflections on just the recognition, and even just looking at that word, it kept popping up to recognize. This was I learned this from Josh X. So to redo, cog is in a cog in a wheel, and then eyes or in eyes. So recogging the eyes to be able to see, shifting that perspective, moving so we're able to see with the eyes and the eye with greater awareness. And that only comes with a humble allowing of shifting in those patterns that, regardless of how long they've been embedded into us or how many societal conditions are put on them, to be able to release them so that we can move that cog into a space where it fits better and see the world in a better way. So that was awesome. And yeah, I would love if anyone else who's interested in getting involved with a project like that. That sounds like a wonderful venture to get down. So definitely reach out to Beth if you're interested in engaging on something like that. You can reach her on Telegram. Her username is Beth Bliss. So at Beth Bliss is a great way to reach out to her. So feel free to do that. And yeah, as you were speaking, it brought up another topic that I'd love to go down if we want to, but I first want to pause and see if anybody else wants to engage on this before I shift it just a little bit.
Can I just
Go ahead.
add something else, Dustin?
Yeah.
My train of thought. I was on a ramble. The part that I forgot to mention was, I gave the perspective of when I was first starting on my journey and my mindset about investing so much in holistic modalities, without having the evidence that it would work for me. And I just wanted to mention too, I forgot this part, that as I went on my journey and I started putting the trust in, seeing the results, and I made some huge investments. And that's when I realized the other side of the coin. Like Lila was describing the rolfing, like that's a very unique modality that very few people, it's sometimes hard to find a properly trained person. And there's so much that goes in, not just financial, but giving, of your time and your energy and learning this and carrying these sacred traditions is really valuable. So then as you maybe work through those things on your journey and you become a practitioner, then you see the other side of it. So that's kind of what I meant to say. Like I meant to finish that whole analogy, but yeah, I just kind of got lost with excitement. So I'm just pointing that out. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could hop on this, what you just said there, Beth, was, yeah, exactly that. It's like, I don't want to just say exactly what you just said. It triggered a very, well, spiderweb kind of thought. Yeah, it's interconnected to a few things, but it's going to have to come back later. I've been listening to this whole thing and my mind's exploding, so I'll have to settle down for a minute. Pardon me.
Yeah, no worries. And yeah, I mean, Beth spoke about this sort of dichotomy very well, in that we don't need to ignore just because so much of our trust in the institutions has been tarnished, and all of these certificates and things, so many of them do seem kind of worthless. It doesn't mean that we need to abandon the idea of having that in general, because like using the Rolfing, for example, that's a phenomenal practice and so helpful. I can attest to that wholeheartedly. And so I absolutely want that trust to be established by someone who claims to be a Rolfing practitioner, so that the purity of that practice is maintained and the certificate holds that trust that carries with them. So it's through these things that we can really alchemize and purify our relationship with certifications and things like that, to really bring forward the best parts of them, and be willing to let go of the old versions of certificates and things, that degrees and whatever, that aren't built on that goodness, aren't built on real trust, and we're just built on a facade. So yeah, it's just an evolving process. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Lila.
and as we get clearer and more aligned, we'll feel it deep within our being. If it's not just like woo of like, oh, let me check in with my angels, or let me check in with my auric field, or whatever it is. Though that's actually frequency, and we'll know, oh, that's medicine for me to learn and be with, or no, that's bullshit, or even not bullshit, like that's just something for me, not right now, I don't need that, or I learned that from my grandmother. And we don't have to put anyone down if they're teaching a class on sound healing. For for some of us it would be amazing, and for others of us, we have that knowing already. So again, back to the know thyself. You'll know yourself so well that it will resonate or it won't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that brought up this topic is another one that I wanted to touch on, and it segues very well into it, of just the risk of how teaching can turn into religions. So we could classify our worship of institutions and these degrees as a form of religion, and just the inherent blind belief that these quote unquote higher universities and things had this trust established just because enough voices repeated the same dogmatic pattern. That's a religion. Just the same way as putting your faith in a church, claiming that they represent the link between you and God, you and the divine, just because they've taken bits and pieces of teachings that are very empowering and distorted them into dogmatic views. So it's so important to come back to the individual sovereignty through that whole process, because then it doesn't give the option for religions to be formed. Teaching can happen from a pure space without putting the teacher on a pedestal, without putting the teaching on a pedestal. To not blindly or dogmatically believe that it has to be done in this way or presented like that, to where I'm just blindly believing in it. But I'm continuously engaging with it in a fluid like way. And just like Lila said, trusting that unfolding nature and my relationship with it, and not being attached to how it looks on this day versus how it might feel weeks from now, months from now, years from now. Might feel different. And that's okay. To allow the just like I said before, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And when the student is more ready, the teacher disappears. And then the teacher appears, and the teacher disappears, and the teacher appears. But that teacher is a fluid position in our life. And it doesn't have to be some external individual, although it can be. It can be a book we find. It can be it can be our internal. I mean, ultimately, it should always be our internal compass. That should be the ultimate teacher for us. But it can show up in the external in so many different ways, all playing that same role, all filling that same role. But as soon as I start viewing that teacher as a religious entity, start putting it up on a pedestal, start saying this degree means this and that, and you better believe it or else, then it's a religion. It's dogma. There's no, the connection to the divine has been cut, or at least attempted to be, through a purely intellectual, left brain perspective. There's no flow through that. There's no leaning into the intuitive nature of, is this teaching really aligned with me? How does this feel within my body? How does this feel within my heart, my soul? How does this feel engaging with this? Or is this purely just a intellectual belief? Oh no, because so many people have said this and everyone's reinforcing it, and I paid a lot of money, or I spent a lot of time, or it's been around for X amount of time, or whatever. All these stories that don't mean anything as far as like, is this actually here and now? Is this connecting with me? The true me, not the egotistical character, not the identity, the persona, not the perceived amount of quote unquote time that I've invested. Is this truly aligned with me, the observer beyond all observation? And so if we're constantly willing to reevaluate that question, and it doesn't have to be something that we engage on consciously necessarily, although doing so at the beginning is certainly helpful. But when it becomes just an ever unfolding way of how we are, then there's no room for anybody to lie to us. There's no room for us to fall into religious dogma or create institutions that end up causing wider scale harm and giving that lie, even if it was built on truth, it can corrupt, it can turn, it can invert. And if we don't give it that power of belief, the institutions, the corporations, the governments, whatever, the personas, the pedestal, if we don't give them that belief, blind belief, then it can never cause harm. At least not in any wide scale way. Larkin Rose's book, The Most Dangerous Superstition. The most dangerous superstition is authority, the belief in authority, rather. And I want to distinguish, because there's a difference between divine authority and moving with that versus believed authority. Divine authority is acting in congruency with the one. Believed authority is with people's perceptions from their egoic identities, giving authority for somebody to also operate from their egoic identity. And that only reinforces separation and control, can lead to much harm being caused. But somebody speaking and living from authority, true authority, connected and aligned with the one, there's no room to cause harm. There's no possibility to cause harm, because you recognize that all is self. So there's no even avenue within that if one is truly living and speaking from authority. So there's a difference in that. But that's why it's hard, it's so challenging to teach, to say, to want to, because that is the quandary that we face, right? We experience a revelation, we experience a joy, a peace that passes all understanding, and we want to share that. We want to give a taste to others, to give an opportunity for others to feel the same ways that we are, and offer that, to humbly give and to say, I want to help. I want to offer this. If I can teach somebody something, I want to give that. But the challenge is, how do I gift that without creating a religion? And of course, we can't control what people do with the teachings ultimately, but we can certainly be dedicated to making that as challenging as possible for the religions to be formed, which is why, if you look at Yeshua's words, he was constantly rebuking the disciples. Anytime talk was mentioned, especially in the Gospel of Thomas, he is constantly admonishing them for any semblance of words used that would lead to a religion, that would take his pure and simple teachings of recognition of self and trying to help, just trying to help share them, and how easily they can get twisted into these dogmatic religious ideologies. And then what could be looked at as like a certificate of helping that's transferred to somebody so that they can also offer and help and share, then that turns into a religious institution where it's not built on the ever-flowing, always changing, moving, conscious nature that we all have within us. We're not recognizing anymore. We're just cognizing. We're just getting locked into the cog. We're becoming the cog. To engage with that from a space of humility and change, shifting as we need to. That's what allows, or that's what prevents the religions from getting stuck and forming and growing power in these monsters, literally demonic entities that form by our conscious belief, these thought patterns, these thought forms that we've adopted and pedestals we place on, and it gets a lot worse very quickly. So it is something that has been very clear to me by being someone who I love to share. I don't really want to be the word teacher or guru, like, it has a lot of weight to it. And I don't particularly enjoy the at least the weight that it can carry, because of the ease that we find in placing on a pedestal and creating those religions. I don't want to be a catalyst for that at all. Now, I know I can't ultimately stop anybody from doing whatever they want with what I say. But I can reinforce that. And I can continue to bring myself down to the saying, like, I'm just learning like everybody else. And that's what I love about this space. Everyone here, we're just learning. We're learning together. And if what I have to share teaches you anything, if what Lila has to share teaches you anything, if what Rowan has to share teaches you anything, if what Beth has to share teaches you anything, beautiful. What Peggy has to share, Darth, anybody. If what anybody has to share teaches you something, that's wonderful. But don't put the teaching and don't put the teacher on a pedestal. Don't take them anywhere else than just another aspect of you who may have found something in a different route or a different way. And maybe that route is helpful. Maybe that way is helpful for you in that moment. But just let it be that. Let it just be a gift. So this is, just something that's been very clear to me, of having seen others step into roles as teachers and not staying consistent in that. Not consistently bringing them back down to a humble space, and just how disastrous that can be. So it's a wonderful lesson for us all to to remember that, what I share with somebody, to bring myself back to the ground, the humus layer, to humble myself, to have humor, to laugh, to be okay with not having it all right, and just trusting the flow through that. That's the energy that's going to propel us forward without relying on some external means for that propulsion. It's the Great Awakening. It's bringing it all back within. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox here, but thanks for listening. And I'll pass it over and see if anybody else wants to jump in either on this topic or take us any which direction. All right, well, let's get into a written question that we've got. So this is from Beck S. And she said, you've mentioned a few times that it would be logical for the new year to start for spring where you are. But how about here in Australia? That time would be bringing us into winter. Maybe our current new year with us in the middle of summer is a compromise. Yeah, so it's a good frame of reference, and also another sort of interesting segue from this topic of not using anything as a end all be all absolute definition defined by all ways and sort of religious concept. It's like, is it helpful for you? Is this something that works for you? And I would agree, from a external sphere, external circumference area of being beneath the Tropic of Capricorn, I think. I can't remember which, the outer one, the outer ring, where the patterns of the seasons is reversed due to the sun's movement. Then yes, it would make sense in a lot of ways to treat the new year always when the spring emerges, which in Australia, for example, that would be in what we call the fall here. So it would be shifting them. So I think having that relative use is very helpful. And there's something to acknowledge within the way this framework is set up, because we are dealing with a center ring of influence, the magnetic center, and everything comes out from that. Everything's based and moving around that. So not to say that what happens in the center ring is more important, but energetically it is where it's going to have a stronger influence, because the center then expands outwards. So having awareness of what the seasonal cycle is doing in the center area, that ripple effect of energy is going to permeate outwards. So even while, due to temperature, weather changes, the new year might suit better in the spring, and just keeping in alignment with that. I think it's also helpful to recognize the energetic influence of what's happening at the center. So I would say that if I were in Australia or somewhere in the outer ring, I would certainly pay attention to both. Recognize the energetic shifts within the quote unquote new year at the spring equinox for the center, but also recognize the energetic shift at the spring equinox for the outer rings, which would be the fall equinox for us. Either way, seasonal shifts are important to pay attention to. And like I said, not allowing the dogmatic view of anyone dictate my relationship with it, but just use them as a marker. And what does this mean for me? What do I feel called to do this year? And it doesn't have to be the same thing that I do every year. What does this season change mean to me? How do I feel best when I move in the seasonal change? But yeah, the natural harmonizing with nature around you is such a simple way to be. And so if you weren't aware of anything else outside of what was happening in your immediate vicinity, to just look out at the green growing, the new life emerging, and being in alignment with that energy, I think is probably what I would lean to the most, regardless, because that's just the simplest way to be. Just look out, look what's happening around. How is nature responding? Be in alignment with that, harmonize with that. Don't be discordant with that, incongruent. And then that flow, that wave that nature is riding on, we get to ride on it too. And it helps to align the rest of our energy to that. So yeah, it's a great question. But that would be my take on that. So I will certainly pass it off and see if anybody else wants to jump in, either on that or something else. All right. Well, here is another sort of concept that came about. I was having a discussion or back and forth with Flora, and we were talking about another topic that we might get into sometime, but something came up through that conversation about resistance and whether resistance is coming from the ego or resistance is coming from the soul. And I thought it was just a unique idea to touch on. So what do I mean by that? Say we're doing something or working on something. We're called to learn something, called to work on, and we have resistance to doing that. Well, in that moment, it's important to ask, where is this resistance coming from? Is this a fear-based resistance? Which, not necessarily always a bad thing either. For immediate protection of the body, sometimes resisting, walking out into the street might be the thing that saves our life from getting hit by a bus. But perhaps that's not fear driven. I don't know, maybe that's more of an intuitive hit. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting to reflect on, like, am I being resistant to working on this, engaging in something, learning about something, going on a course? Am I resistant to doing that because I'm afraid I won't have enough time to do it? I'm afraid I don't have enough money to do it. I'm afraid I will be exposed or judged. All of these things are resistance from the ego. Resistance of change because, the ego doesn't like change. The ego wants to keep us, quote unquote, safe. but that really just means locked into a lower frequency. So that's certainly one form of resistance. But then the other, resistance of doing something, engaging with something, talking with somebody, sometimes that can be the soul's message, resistance, where it's like, there's just, I can't even really put my finger on it, but I'm resistant to doing this. I just don't feel called to. And those could easily be a higher calling of not spending time in a, whatever, some form of energy suck, some form of loop or consistent pattern that is not serving me, is not bringing me to a higher space of awareness. But that can get tricky too, right? Because it's like, is that resistance truly coming from the soul, or is that coming from the ego? Am I just afraid of engaging with that or talking with this individual because of what it shows within me, what it triggers? Or am I truly resistant to it because it's something that doesn't align with my path, with where my soul is calling me? So there's no answer, no answer to that. I can't give an answer. It is just another reason to continually work on that inner compass, refining my ability to listen, to hear, having humility to acknowledge, and humility to recognize, where is this drive coming from? Am I willing to look at the parts of me that are producing the fears? Can I even see them? Or do I need to go into deeper subconscious layers by asking questions, by sitting with it? Or is this something that I'm already clear on, and this resistance is truly coming from a space of, my angelic guides saying, not this way. You don't need to go there. So again, I can't answer that, but it's a question to ponder. And I don't say that because even having these kind of questions can lead us into resisting to do anything. It's like, I can't even figure anything out. I'm just going to paralyze myself and not do anything. That's a pitfall as well. Anyway, just a fun little thing to chew on. So there you go. But I will, I'll pass it over, and I see Sarah wants to jump in. Go ahead, Sarah.
Right, I have to unmute, sorry. It is a fun topic, and you used the word before, resonance, or I don't know if it's you or maybe it's Lila. You either resonate with something or you don't. And sometimes when someone we really admire, like I really admire you, you're excited about doing this SongKeeper experience, and you put out the invitation to other people, and so again, we will either resonate or not, and if we don't, it doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I just to me, you did that interview also with Gabby, and she talked a lot about the whole somatic thing, like which I can really relate to, about listening to your body and healing, when we're healing our nervous system around knowing within your own body if something is healthy and good for you or not. And like last week, I brought up the whole thing about that series, Stranger Things, and I did finish it. I did labor or soldier through, and I'm glad I did. But it was very challenging for me, and but in the end, it was an expansive experience for me. But it was something I had to be careful with my nervous system, with my because I was very triggered by a lot of the imagery in that. Anyway, I love having the conversations with, like, direct conversations with people. You know, when you're in a relationship or friendship with people and you can see the resistance, and yeah, respecting when people don't want to go somewhere, but also when you're aware, very aware that maybe they're putting up a wall right away is a fear. And I was going to say a crazy fear, but I don't mean to make that sound like the person is crazy, but that it's something that is calling for healing, and being a good friend is softening there, and maybe inviting a conversation about it. And I guess for me, I'm really yearning for more of my connections to have that mutual shadow work, mutual inviting each other into uncomfortable like I would call it healing territory. Yeah, and I think that's all I have to share. And I just want to say, the whole time tonight I've been making beeswax candles, and it smells so divine.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for the kind words. I really admire you too. So I appreciate that. And yeah, it is, I share that want so much. And I do love that is encouraged in this space too, of just being with people who are willing, they're willing, like willing to look at themselves, or willing to go through that process, willing to get uncomfortable, willing to go deep. And that's all that's required, really. You know, like for me at least, like I don't demand perfection. I don't, in fact, I'm wary of perfection. Not that people can't be very competent or capable or wise, but I'm wary of the concept of perfection, because I love those who not dwell in their imperfections, but are just willing to engage with them. That humble way of being, of the willingness to laugh at oneself, acknowledge the areas where we don't get it all right, or, and what is all right anyway, right? You know, like these definitions of how it has to be all the time. Anytime we define goodness, or define what right is, or what love is, we're introducing all sorts of problems. We're creating a religion when we do that. We know what right is. We know what love is. We know what goodness is. But it is beyond definition, because it's fluid. I mean, it's like it's so paradoxical, because it has some very immutable qualities to it, but it is ultimately beyond me putting it in a box or saying it has to be like this all the time and always. So anyway, I just wanted to say I really appreciate you saying that, and I know it's at least it has been for me, but I hear from others, it's challenging to find those who are really wanting And when those situations come up that really push us and test us, and the resistances come up, the the egoic resistances come up, the unwillingness, the walls, it does make it harder to want to keep going down those roads if there's not a willingness to say, hey, maybe I don't see it all. Because I of course I'm not perfect, but I do strive to be in that space, in that willingness to revisit and relook. And then when I know, we speak on it with authority from a knowing. And that's where it gets tricky, when the knowings collide or the perceived knowings collide. And in those moments, we trust the flow and trust the movement and trust the shift. And through that process, it's like it can't help but to refine communities and relationships within people who are truly willing to do that. And not forcing them to, just because we want that, not forcing them to happen on any timeline or any way. Which is why I am wary of communities forming from that place of, we just want the community to form, so we're going to encourage that to happen. It's like, in my experience, it doesn't work that way. There has to be the cohesive trust established and the willingness over like a prolonged period of time. Can't just be proven, very, because people can say all sorts of things. We have learned how to mimic or say the right words. But ye shall know them by their fruit. And sometimes you got to wait a season to see what fruit's producing. It doesn't just grow right away. So, yeah, anyway, just appreciate you sharing that. And that's that's exciting. You made it through the Stranger Things trial. And I'm sure it brought up a lot of fun things to look at and go through, and really appreciate that question last week. It brought up a lot of great things, and just appreciate you. So thanks for the share, Sarah, and I will pass it back and see if you or anybody else wants to hop in. All right. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So another sort of, I've talked about this before, but just to go on it again, because it does come up. This is like a buzz term that can get thrown out there. So the whole twin flames concept, I wanted to just give my take on it. I do see it like, and this is another thing where I think is beyond definition. Everything that is ultimately aligned with the ever-flowing conscious nature of this experience is beyond definition. And as I mentioned with the song Decode at the beginning, the lines around, I tried to write it down, or I forgot to write it down, kind of thing. This attempts that we make to place the ever unfolding nature of consciousness into words or concepts. And that's why concepts can be so helpful. They can be so helpful. So don't get me wrong in what I'm about to say, because they really can be very helpful, and they can be very harmful as well when they create a rigidity that locks us into a form of dogma. You know, it's like I've had a few people ask about the concepts mentioned recently around like the monad and the demiurge, and I do want to talk more about them. I actually have some plans for some dedicated shorter videos where I want to explain them more. But through that, I want to interweave the importance of realizing that these are just concepts. And if the concept is not, if the tool of the concept is not serving, if it's creating more confusion or overwhelm or feeling like we have to figure this all out before I even know anything, then the concept is not serving. The concept is actually a trap. It's not helping in that moment. And this applies to all concepts, all definitions, all ways of speaking, all forms of logos, all spoken word, all representations of consciousness in a step down form. You know, you've got the pure form of consciousness as that awareness, the pure observation, and then any form beyond that, whether that's the body or the experience or the mindset, the thoughts, the spoken word. All of these are step down forms of it. They're after effects. They're not the cause. So if we're defining things based on the effects, then that's not going to help us. And it can be a trap. So going back to the concept I wanted to touch on more in regards to twin flames, like this is the greatest love story ever told. So of course there's going to be that element of love imbued to it, and the romantic story that unfolds through it. God is a huge romantic. I mean, it's very obvious, very obvious through that. And when I say God, I mean you, I, we are huge romantics. This whole creation is just such an expression of that great romance. And what better story than to have lovers separated by some experience, some grand story across far reaches of the universe, and to have the quest for those lovers to return, which ultimately is just you returning to you. But to have that story expressed so beautifully in so many ways is magical. It is. And just like I said, that perhaps undeniable formation of creation through the love story can also become a trap if we get lost in the concepts of this idea that, oh, there is only one soul out there for me. And this is just my opinion, which, you know, is what it is. But I find that idea can lock us into a sort of separated mindset, right? That there's just one other soul that we are meant for, right? Because really there's only one. So the only appearance of separation is merely the frequencies that we are representing in whatever moment. That's what gives me, and I say me, but my character, the Justin Carpenter form of this conscious experience, that's what gives me the characteristics, the ways that I show up, my human design, my parts that are more consistent and wonderful to study and learn, so that I can step into a greater expression of that, to discover my unique gifts and how they show up and how I can share them. all wonderful. But ultimately, that is just a story, right? It's just a character. It's just a identity to take on for as long as it serves, in whatever way it serves, for as many, I hope to be hundreds, if not thousands of years. Why not? Why not let that story unfold as long as feels right? But ultimately, it is just a story. Because I'm not this body. I'm not this character. I'm not this identity. I'm not this name. I'm not this mind. I'm that which is beyond that. So when it comes to the twin flame concept, a lot of people lean to it meaning like, oh, there's just one individual character that's out there for you. And I'm not saying I know this with all certainty. But to me, that does seem a bit limiting as far as the unfolding nature of falling in love with the self. So to me, the twin flames represents two who have the flames lit, who are at such a aware state of realization and such a willingness to suspend the character, not to abandon it, but to suspend it, to float the idealized, personified self away into the etheric pool of the void. But to do that with, quote unquote, another. That to me is what the twin flames represent. It's a very challenging state to achieve. Of course, extremely challenging. Extremely challenging just in the self, in one individual. But to do that and dance with two, becoming one through that, exponentially harder. And what a worthy task for this grand love story that's ever unfolding, for us to find the one in the one. Find the one in the perceived other. And yeah, I guess you could frame it that the circumstances and energetic patterning of creation and in whatever moment yields the greatest likelihood of that one whom I could do that with at whatever quote unquote time. Why not? But it is all just you. So there is no other. Anyway, I might be going a bit too deep and philosophical on it, but it was just something that came up as, just sort of like a buzz term that gets thrown around, and I just wanted to throw my take out there. And not that it takes away from my huge romantic inclination, and I love the story. I just also, I want to keep it as that, the story for us to fall in love with the self, and if that self is expressed in another, perceived another, and how wonderful is that dance together. Anyway, I'll pass it over and see if anyone else has any thoughts there or wants to take us any other direction.
Hi, I'd like to speak on that. It really, it's so true, and it shows how so many people are driven apart because they get so caught up in the external that then they are ultimately disappointed, right? When that external energy is not meeting their needs or quote unquote, aligning, or these kinds of things. And that way that the being can either know thyself and then it comes through. I mean, it really aligns with what we were already speaking about earlier too, with the guru and the teacher and the lack of alignment or resonance. It's like there's this way that it's perfect alignment, and of course this other shows up in your face and it's like, oh yes, right? And then the slippery dangerous slope of for going from oh yes to oh no as the need to have that externalization be in a certain way, even in a very true way of like, does this align? Do we both, are we both vegetarian? Are we both vegan? Or does one of us eat meat? All the different things that are, maybe very important as far as a day-to-day earthly mundane life. It's just so beautiful to hear it put that way, and also to consider that that's probably why there is so much divorce, of course, and certainly we're seeing that within the truther movement, these breakups around one person being a liberal, one person not, blah 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 blah, all the different reasons that people are separating right now. Financial stability, people who have stayed with people just because of that, and so on. All of the external validation, whatever it's showing up as. Yeah, I appreciate the conversation around it. And yeah, it's beautiful to really consider that and be in the now with it. Thank you.
Yeah, great reflection. Thanks for that. It's yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It's like the external concepts or ideas that I have to find this in somebody else is what creates the trap. The putting that idea, that concept on a pedestal, creating a religion out of it. And, if I'm reliant on some external person, idea, whatever, then I'm building that house on the sand. So, yeah.
And
Go ahead.
Truth that exists simultaneously. Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were done there.
Yeah, go ahead.
That truth that exists simultaneously, which is sometimes it really is a ripple through. And here is this beautiful soul that's showing up to hold you and love you and be that external source of that love within. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, truly. It's yeah, but I would say that the external solution or the external catalyst is still pointing me back towards that internal realization, and whether I choose to accept it or not, or whether that external relationship leads me there or not is my choice. So yeah,
right, true sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Yeah, I saw Belinda Maga raise your hand. Did you want to jump in? Yeah, you opened up your mic just a second ago, but then you closed it. Just have to tap that center button again and it opens up. There you go.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Justin. Hi, everyone. I didn't push the button, but I wanted to speak, so maybe it's okay that I speak. For me, it's a twin flame. I think my Christ itself. So I am my my own twin flame. So do I see it. It's almost the same of what you say, I think. So we have all a twin flame, and I think that is our higher self. But that is my perspective on it. So, yeah, that was what I was thinking when we had this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Glad you chimed in. And absolutely, it's the yes, twin flame with the self, right? Which is you and you and your soul, or your connection to the divine, your masculine and feminine nature within you coming together in perfect harmony to be those twin flames is absolutely vital as a first step in order to truly even begin to call in that experience with another. And that's why I said it's that part alone is extremely challenging, and one not to be overlooked. People want to skip that part and just look for, oh, somebody else to do it for me, somebody else to fix me, some ideology, some concept, some religion, some pedestal, some person to put me to, fix my shit, but we can't. You can't skip that part. And so if I'm skipping over that part, then everything that I call in to help fix me is going to help. It's going to reflect back to me the areas that I haven't worked on, the triggers within me that I'm not willing to see, to sit with. Every relationship that I enter is going to expose those. And if I keep blaming the external as the problem and refusing to look at what is happening within me to reflect this, then around and around and around I will go. As many iterations as I need to, as many experiences or lifetimes as I need to go through in order to come back and say, oh, okay, this is all me. I'm being reflected the layers of me. So what is the message here? What is the lesson? What am I here to learn? And it's not a one and done thing. Of course, it's a continual process. And how exciting is that? How wonderful is that we always get to learn and grow and come into new states of awareness and expansion and new states of power and influence and all of it. But it all must be earned. With great power comes great responsibility. So we must earn to carry the flame. We must earn to be the flame keeper, because you can burn yourself or burn other people with that flame. So you got to learn how to wield it. Be the twin flames within the swirling two fires dancing together harmoniously. And then when somebody has done that consistently, then creation has no choice but to reflect back that which can augment and enhance those flames even further. And so if ultimately, the majority of the triggers have been worked out, which that process never ends. There's always going to be layers of subconscious and darkness to look at. But if we view those as a celebration and we cherish the reflection that our partner is bringing us, then those twin flames activated in me and the twin flames activated in her get to augment and build upon each other. And there's no limit. There's no limit to the heights that we can fly through that, as long as there's a willingness, as we said earlier, a willingness to engage on that, and a willingness to humbly move through it when it bumps up against our ego. Yeah, anyway, that's all I got to say there. So I will pass it back and see if anybody else wants to jump in. All right. Well, I am about out of questions. I have some like older ones that we've gone over before that I can go over maybe another time, but I'll say that if we don't have any more here, I'll probably bring this to a close. So just wanted to give an opportunity. Go ahead, Lila.
Hey, I wanted to just kind of bring in the lens of attachment slash attachment theory slash connection theory. And I could also see how the whole twin flame thing can be used through the lens of both avoidant and anxious attachment, right? So like I've had a few friends that are like, no, this person's my twin flame, and I've seen like sort of how neurotic they've become in that way, and very like what I would call anxiously attached, or maybe just uh confused, as far as that attachment, not always anxious, probably going back and forth between the two. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting to think about too, around this whole twin flame thing, how there are those that use that, and the ego sort of grabs on in that way, and how to get really clear on when you're really working with secure connection versus the avoidant and the anxious attachment, or just a disorganized attachment, right? Which can mean both.
Yeah, it's so great to bring up, and it's very hard to, or it can be challenging to wrap around, because the purest expression of love also has in it the complete release and willingness to let go, the willingness to let somebody go. So that's where, again, like you said, the twin flames concept or things like that can be a trap. It's a limitation, a thing, an idea, an egregore for the ego to latch onto, to deny what we're being shown or what's happening, and exposes that unhealthy attachment, insecure attachment. Whereas from a securely connected space, which can only be there if I have done the work to be securely connected within, a securely connected space in relationship has at all moments a willingness to let somebody go. Which the ego might hear that and be like, oh, so what, you don't care about somebody? You just abandon them? The stories that get thrown out there. And that's why it can be challenging to explain, especially when someone is still in that sort of traumatic patterning of insecure attachment. But really, the secure connection is the willingness to let somebody go. So, because we cannot control anybody. And if I am latched onto this idea of twin flames, and I am either shifting my authentic nature or trying to manipulate somebody else's authentic nature in that particular moment, because it's the forever unfolding now, then I'm participating in the mire, in the muck, in the false matrix, latching onto some concept, stepping away from the perfect, continually evolving, changing, shifting now, the only thing that's actually real. And I'm in the false reality. So to be so connected with the self, to trust that if our relationship is shifting, I'm okay. It's going to be okay. And again, the stories come up. It's like, what? So willing to just throw somebody away? You know, all these inflammatory wordings get thrown out there whenever this is truly discussed or starting to come out. How could you be so cold and heartless? But it's actually the exact opposite, to be so loving and caring, to truly embrace somebody for where they are, not trying to force them or manipulate them to be something that they are not in that moment. And that's the greatest gift that God gave us. This source consciousness that we all come from, that we all are, yet we're in a step down perspective of that. But we were gifted free will. God said, I love you so much that I will let you have free will, even if that means that you drift further away, hurt yourself, hurt others, which is all you, through the process. That's how much I love you, to give you that gift of free will, regardless of what we do with it. And so mirroring that same unconditional love is essential if we are truly to embody our true nature, our true self, become the one. If I'm holding on to some concept or some relationship or some attachment or then I have stepped off of my throne. I have stepped off of my voice of authority. I'm now operating as the other. I'm now shifting into the separated, warped perspective. Because the one knows that there is nowhere else to go. And so the way that the journey unfolds is beautiful. No matter how devious or dark it may seem. And we can even look at the most extreme versions of examples with something so horrific as child torture. You know, the most horrific of monstrous things that we can envision and see. To be at peace with that. And don't get me wrong, not in a state of just bypassing, ignoring, allowing, if we have the impetus to move and to shift and to stop. There's a fine line between inaction out of cowardice versus being at peace, because there is no separation. There is no act that takes us away from that. And any time I'm fighting with the self because of something happening, because we have free will, then I'm fighting with myself. And so going back to the twin flames concept, if I'm fighting against what is, because I had this belief that I was with someone that I wanted to classify as a twin flames because it brought my ego some comfort to think, oh, I don't have to search anymore. And now that's being threatened because we're growing apart. As soon as I allow any of that fear to creep in, there's no way that I'm sitting on that throne. There's no way that I'm operating and speaking from authority. I am possessed in that moment. I'm possessed by the fear. I'm possessed by the attachment. It doesn't mean I have to stay that way, but it's important to recognize like what's happening. What's really causing this? Why am I afraid of letting go? Because I can only fear letting go if I truly believe separation is real. if I believed there was somewhere else to go. So the only way that we speak with authority and maintain that seat of power is with that absolute knowing. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. No matter what is done, no matter what is thrown at me or anybody else. Again, don't get confused that it means that we just blindly do nothing, when things happen. Spirit's going to move us into action if there's harm being caused. And at the same time, it's also going to be moving through us wisely. For example, just on that little side note, on that example, we know there's harm being caused in the slaughterhouses all over the world. But if I go out there and try and, break them open and like whatever form of aggressive action to try and stop those slaughterhouses from doing that, that's not going to get it anywhere. I'm not at peace with what's happening, even though I recognize that that's not the way that I want to live. If I'm not at peace with what is, then the only one I'm fighting with is myself. So to be willing to let that go, again, not from a space of turning a blind eye or pretending like that's okay. There will be a time where we're called to speak and time where we're called to do. And when we are, we truly do that. But also to get clear when is my ego calling me to move or shift in that? When is my ego trying to convince me that I need to fight to preserve this idea of a relationship that I'm not being honest with myself about? Or am I just going to be honest with myself and honor it for wherever it is? And not be afraid to lose. Come from a space of abundance, not a space of lack. So yeah, it's a great example to bring up as far as the secure connection versus the insecure attachment. Being securely connected to the self, sitting on that seat, on that throne, versus any other state that can show up in infinite number of ways, and all of which are can be quite disastrous. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Lila. That's all I got there.
Yeah, and even the word disastrous, it's like disastrous or just perfect for us all to learn. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that. Cool. Well, I think it'd be good to start winding it down to a close here. But I'm happy if anybody else wants to have some closing comments or things they want to share before we do. I'll just give an opportunity for that. Hey, Peggy, go ahead.
Hey, Justin. Yeah, just a closing comment regarding our very first conversation. And we are all teachers of men, and that's what it says biblically. Can you hear me okay? I'm on my speaker.
Yeah, we can manage. It's a little echoey, but it's okay. We can hear you.
Okay, because let me just turn it off. Okay, that might be better.
Yeah, way better.
Okay, thank you. In our previous conversation, the one that we started the show with, just to end on, we are all teachers of men, and I just really love the content of what was shared by everybody, and there's so many different things that we can teach people, and everyone has the ability to do that. And when I was having conversation with Lucy, who is who believes in who's religious and believes in the Jesus that we all know is not the one, is not the way, like Yeshua was, but she was a teacher as a younger adult, and it's just so interesting to be able to minister to somebody and to have someone open up to you. And I just hope that with what we're doing and with how the universe and the energy is shifting, and that people will start realizing like what is really going on. Like in my little space or I don't have many people that I'm with on a weekly, daily, monthly basis, but the ones that I am with, they're actually getting it and they're actually seeing it. And I think especially the adults, the elderly, the seniors, I think they'll be able to put it together more prospectively than a younger generation, than those that see everything on social media, et cetera. But I was just trying to convey to her that, we are all teachers of men and we are all one. And we have some really, really amazing spiritual conversations, and I can relate to her spiritually, through God and through my wisdom of God and who we really genuinely are. And she can relate to me in that way too, because there's no separation, even when you're looking at, Yeshua versus Jesus, there's still that connection and the spirituality, towards our divine beings. So it has just been, really just an honor to still be here in this space and to glean from everyone that has everything that they're bringing to the table as we shift into to what we're truly here for, and that is to bring heaven upon earth. And so super excited about that, and earnestly making the shift organically. And I just think that if we just trust ourselves, each and every one of us, that we'll find ourselves through loving ourselves and through our gifts and through what God wants us all to bring to the table, because it's gonna take an army of love and just a beautiful radiance of vibration and faith. So yeah, and then just one other thought about Lucy, because I don't run into many people that have watched the movie Christspiracy. And she actually told me that she watched the movie Christspiracy through her son. And that was like as I was leaving her house after my third or fourth visit. And it was just, I don't know, I just feel as though the people that we meet are non-coincidental, and there's a plan for everything. And we've been hearing it for years, trust the plan, and nothing is a coincidence, and the people that we meet are for a purpose. And I just totally, I'm experiencing it, and it's beautiful. And, we're all here to, as the first person I heard say this, Jill, is to walk each other home and to guide each other. And just what a great space we do remain in together. So thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. It is just a exciting venture to go down, and people will learn in the ways that they do, and just like we do in the ways that we do, and just celebrate every bit of that, even the ones that feel frustrating or however, it's like that we get to celebrate those too. So yeah, thanks for sharing. And yeah, anybody else want to give any closing comments before we wrap up today?
Yeah, don't mind if I may. It crossed my mind earlier is, well, it seems at least 3 times actually, my headphones have cut out, and it does this terrible thing where it like makes a really ugly sound, and it's like being trolled technologically, like the planned obsolescence of these devices. I feel like a lot of us are trying to stay away from the Bluetooth and all those things. However, it's like they're basically, whoever they are still, who are maybe controlling these things, want us to use Bluetooth. And so it's becoming nearly impossible to just use regular headphones, because you have to get like a type C connector. You can't even use the 3.5s to the converters, because not only those are completely terrible quality, but even the built-in ones, like these ones, don't work very well. So I was wondering, since I've done some research, and I mean, to me, it just all seems like lies. So there seems to be some Bluetooth headphones. Some companies make them. None of the names I can recall, because they all just sounded scammy to me. So chose not to remember them. But they claim to have like those similar types of kind of Horus or tensor rings built into the headphone, like a very small anti-Bluetooth, like, dis-ease frequency, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sure that there's some real technology like this that has already probably existed, since, there's nothing new under the sun. But yeah, any legitimate sources that anyone has, that if they're currently using them while listening to the stream, please tell me how the quality is, because yeah, it's becoming more prevalent to need to use headphones. Like, there's so much noise in this world. Like, noise cancellation is important, and it seems that the evil one, or the evil ones, are trying their best to just continue to interrupt us. God bless that. That's our battle. That's as hard as it really is for us, and it's to just plug the things back in and just turn it back on, whatever. But to not be interrupted would be awesome, and to have proper conversations too. Like, I've now been interrupted so many times, not even talking about, these much more enlightening things that shake up the world. Just completely mundane conversations are nearly impossible with these new smartphones and wired headphones. Yeah, who's got any sources, if any, please and thank you. Yeah.
Well, I won't go too deep into this, but I'll just say simply that I personally have never found any negative effects of using Bluetooth myself. I'm not saying that there aren't potentially harmful effects from using them. Maybe there are, but at the same time, what might even be more harmful is just your peace or lack thereof, right? So the conversation around, do I use this, or is this hurting me, or all of that. So my encouragement always is to let that peace be your guide. And so if using some headphones that yeah, I mean, I would just encourage that. And if you are curious about specific products and things, I know we've talked about it before, but using an AI interface is great to ask for reviews, testimonies, and things of people having used a particular item or product, and it will pull up a lot of information there to give you a better idea. YouTube is also great as well, of just looking up a particular product and seeing if you can find somebody who's not necessarily sponsored by that product to say, I've used this and reported this effect or whatever. So anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that, but I'll just say, yeah, we can certainly talk more on it in another show if need be. But that would just be my take there. And yeah, please, anybody reach out to Rowan if you have any other suggestions in that space. Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah. Just saying thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Anybody else got any closing comments before we wrap up today? All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone for being here. This was another dynamic discussion. Always a fun one to go down, and just appreciate the topics and opportunity to speak on all these fun things. It's very nourishing. It's very nourishing to get to do. So I'm in deep gratitude. Thank you very much. And sending love out to everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, day, wherever you are. And until next time, I'll talk to you then. Bye, everybody.